Good afternoon all. I'd like to welcome you to the Scrutiny meeting for Place and Corporate on Monday the 17th of April. And before we start, I need to read out this statement. This Scrutiny Committee hybrid meeting is being conducted on a multi-location basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act and arrangements for the multi-location meetings agreed by Council, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed to the public, and I request that you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise and to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The Council standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. And I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. And remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. As well as being broadcast live, a recorded version of this remote meeting will be uploaded onto the Council website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. A Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Moving to the agenda. We've received no apologies. Any declarations of interest? No. We move to the minutes of the previous meeting, and it's just for matters arising, and I'm just going to go through the pages. Page 3, page 4, page 5, 6.
Yes, Chair.
Page 6.
Page 6, yeah. First bullet point on there, working with social landlords to mediate on issues the community safety wants making involved in. And the committee were told we were revisiting the conversations with the registered social landlords on the community and their contributions made to this. We haven't an update. Whether they're actually progressing and accepting work from the registered social landlords.
So you would like an update the next meeting? Yes. Okay. Okay, Councillor. Page 7. Page 8. 9. 10. 11. 12.
Yes, Chair. Bullet point about the street lights switching off and being on every night, etc. Revised that there will be a verification for the committee as to whether we can actually set the times at different times on the street lights. Back.
That's been noted. Page 13. 14.
Yes, Chair. Page 14, the reading about the cancellation of call recording contract, and the head of finance said that we provide data at a future date.
Okay. Because it's been noted. Page 15. 16.
Yes, Chair. This is the people policy transformation as for a list of assets the council possess, and the project is underway and the information provided to the committee. So how is that project coming on and when we get an update?
Probably in the next meeting. Oh, sorry. Tracy, should we just answer that? Would you like to answer that?
Thank you. So the project has started. We're running through a check of the assets at the moment. We're outlining scope. We are looking at the different implications, I guess, of decision making, things like climate change, cost, non-future spend, and so on. And we'll be developing a strategic asset management plan once we have all of that data, and we'll come back to the
Those are the way.
Is underway. Exactly. The short answer is underway.
Okay, thank you all for that.
Yeah.
Page 17. 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yes, Chair. In the service stated they were working Newport Transport to provide digital information shelters. We asked if there's any updates on this query yet. It's yourself being advised that this will be chased up.
Yeah, still waiting for that. I would chase it again.
Look forward to the next meeting, Councillor. Okay, I'd like to invite Tracy McKim to give us an overview of the recruitment. That first one, yes.
Thank you. So we're on page 23 of papers. Maisie's Cornwall Director and Kevin Howells, HR Manager, will take us through most of the detail and we'll answer any questions that you have. You may recall that the service plans came to the committee and one of the things identified was recruitment and retention issues. Both we mentioned it, I think, in our service plan. It came through in a few of the others, and the committee quite rightly asked what that looks like, what are we doing about that, what can we do? And the report takes through some of those details. We've attempted to set out the local government context, structures, I guess, and also we'll pause during the report, so some kind of more complicated bits, but also, although we're limited within the local government pay structures, what can we and have we done about this? And we're keen to take comments of the committee on board. This year we'll be developing our new people plan, and one of the things that come out of this is feedback we can take forward in our people plan and think about kind of what else we can do as well as things we're already doing. So if that's anything, we'll take it real quick. Okay.
Okay, so I'll try not to read all of it and pick out the more relevant points, I guess. It's just I'd like to sort of three sections. So take you through and perhaps stop at each section to make sure there's any questions that like rather than going into the discussion about that section, just any questions that perhaps not more clarity on. So recruiting and retaining suitable workforce is obviously one of the most challenging areas of focus for many local authorities and public sector bodies, not just people to council. So I suppose it's important to say that it's not just a Newport thing. It is a UK-wide issue, particularly in the public sector and also in the private sector. Just to put some context behind the staff that we have and what we have, the council employs around 5,900 employees, so full-time equivalent of about 4,600 employees. And that means we have around 78% female weighted workforce and about 22% male workforce. So that's kind of the context of the council in terms of where we're employing staff. One of the main recruitment issues that we face as local government is the competition with the private sector. Private sector can offer higher salaries and different benefit packages, perhaps what the council can't necessarily compete with in the same way, which obviously makes it a challenge for us to attract and recruit in some areas for suitable qualified professionals. So what that does mean is when we do try and recruit, often we're trying to recruit perhaps more than once. So we're having to put adverts out more than once and then try different presses or other activities to try and push our campaigns to bring people into the organisation. So often perhaps we're having a number of recruitment campaigns that we perhaps previously didn't have to do because we've had applicants coming forward. In the retention area, which is obviously equally as important as recruitment, is once we have people in them, we want them to stay, we're invested in them from day one. There's also some challenges there, probably more around pay and benefits again that we face as a council, but ultimately, you know, that's a local government thing, which ultimately people do predominantly to go to the private sector, which obviously then impacts our turnover rates, and obviously employees are seeking better pay and benefits elsewhere. And I've got just at the top of the page where you'll see the turnover rates for the council, which are pretty stagnant over the last 4 years. Once you take that COVID year out, where people did stay in employment for a lot longer for security, there was a slight increase, but not a significant increase, I would say, although any turnover is not ideal, obviously. If you also, probably know from your own dealings with employment yourselves, there is more of a trend, I suppose, or a shift in kind of millennials these days. They don't stay in employment as long as they used to, so you don't have lifelong employment as much these days. So we're also trying to combat that with probably putting attention kind of strategies and kind of the environmental factors that we face. And also we've got budget constraints, and we have to make that work within the context of whilst also ensuring staff and morale and well-being in those areas are key on that. So just to talk through section 1, which is about pay and labour. This tries to bring together the complexity around local government pay and public sector pay. So we have a very rigid job evaluation scheme, a pay grading structure that are linked together. Our job evaluation scheme dictates our rank order of jobs, if you like, what that word, so the order of seniority or complexity of jobs, whichever way you look at it, you get a rank order of jobs. We've got about 600 jobs across the council, delivering about 800 members, different disciplines, but there are broadly about 600 jobs that we have, so that's 600 different job descriptions. And then we've got a nationally agreed pay structure, which all local government employers will use, that sets out the pay and the bands for that pay structure. So our rank order of jobs then sits on top of the pay structure, which then dictates in bandings which job gets which pay. And I will pause at that point to see if I'm making sense to kind of outline how the job evaluation process links to the pay structure and the dictation of the pay. Do you have any questions on that point?
Come in, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. There's some statistics here, but they're more regarding sort of the picture in local authorities, perhaps nationally. And I'm wondering if we can, if we can be made aware of how those are reflected in Newport, or where Newport differs from those. And then you mentioned about obviously we're aware that people leave all the time. Can you give us any indication of sort of the average age that people leave and the average age that you recruit people from? Because we're hearing, about the national picture, government are wanting older people to come back into work. So is that something that we're experiencing in Newport?
Yeah, you could certainly bring back the kind of demographics of the workforce in terms of where turnover is, and also what
and the trend, where it's actually changed over. Thank you.
Same picture because some related to data, yes.
Yes. Councillor Hales.
Thanks, Chair. I guess the bit which I would have liked to have seen here is some of that data. So reasons why people leave, how many people do we get our average that apply for a role? We're getting 1 for 1, or we get 50 applicants per job, are they at different levels? So a bit more data in terms of that, because that then informs perhaps some of the KPIs that we can sort of work together to think about in terms of improvement in some areas of focus. So I think it would be useful to have some of that data, and the demographic of those people that apply, and how we attracting the diverse range of applicants that we want to, which reports all belongs to, but is it happening in reality? So some of that data would be useful to sort of come back, drive some improvements.
to bring back sort of workforce demographic analysis. Yeah.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have asked this as well. I've made a note here. We read in this that the dramatic increase in cost of wages to our workers. But I mean, certainly we know we've lost a considerable number of workers over the years. Why, can you break down for us why there has been that increase in wages? Because, you know, we're also reading in this that the real value to workers of the wages which they get is greatly reduced. So what are the reasons for those increases? I mean, are we recruiting people who have substantially higher levels of skills, so we're having to pay them more, or what are the reasons for that? Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose to answer this question, I'm cautious I haven't finished this section. I suppose I was just checking you were comfortable with the points I'd read to, I guess, at that point.
Should we answer the things we've got the answers?
Right.
While we're there, and I got some questions.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of, as you say, the cost of pay has increased by 65 million, which is noted in the report, and that there's a number of reasons for that, I think, in terms of when you look at the data. So historically, from 2010, 2008 through to perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, it's very limited kind of pay and what, and you can see there from 2021 to 23, 24 is the big increase. So in the last couple of years, and that is predominantly because the last couple of years have seen a significant rise in pay awards offered to staff, and for instance, the last couple of years has seen a circa £25 million increase to the pay bill of the council because of those pay awards. That's not just the NJC, the officers in the civic centre, but that also impacts school colleagues, so teacher pay awards and school support staff pay awards, but also the pension increases as well. That's been a significant cost to the council. So the scheme has been increased, which has an impact on the council in the last couple of years. And also we've seen, which is a net cost to the council, we've seen an increase in grant funding posts in the council, which, you know, if you look at going back to the turnover bit, you'll see there's around 250, 300 people extra in the organisation, with the backdrop of reduction in budgets over the last 2 years, which I'm sure we've all been made aware of and seen. But actually, the workforce has increased in the last few years. So they're kind of the 4 areas probably that impact pay mainly. So we've got circa 25 million of additional pay costs because of the percentage pay increase that staff have received in the last 2 or 3 years, but probably nothing big, very limited in the years before that. Pension increase, increase in grant funding coming through to fund other posts, and also then the increase in employees coming to the organisation. So the 4 areas impacting on that.
Do we actually, sorry, just a supplementary thought, are we aware of sort of the balance of that, you know, managerial posts, supervisory posts compared with posts of lower grade? You know, have we lost how does that, the percentages on those look compared with, say, 5 or 10 years ago? You know, which way are we going? Because there is a popular perception with the public that, you know, oh, another budget that managers will be retaining their posts and it will be workers at lower grades who are got rid of.
Yeah.
Can you it'd be really interesting to see some figures to actually see, you know, how that's falling out.
Yeah.
Did we just see the pay differential top to bottom?
Yeah,
Because that's the answer, I think.
I mean, you'll see at council in next council in a few days' time that actually the ratio between the chief officer, the chief executive, and the lowest paid individual has decreased again this year. So actually, the lowest paid officers are catching up to the highest paid officers, and so the average annual pay pool is negative, i.e. or around 0 in the last couple of years. So there's a recognition that the lowest paid people are catching up with the highest paid people in terms of the demographic of people who are leaving in management roles or joining management roles. To include that in demographic
not a statistician, if you had a situation where you were losing the lower paid workers, that would actually make the differential between the chief executive and the lower paid workers less, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, perhaps you could get us something that might consider the situation then with that.
Thanks. I was going to add, Chair, because I think it's on a couple of different points, such as the applications. One of the issues with the stats is it depends. It really depends. So we get good quality applicants and then pay them to certain, and not to others. So kind of when you average that out, it's okay. And we'll go on to talk about where the problem areas are, but it is within skills in short supply, which generally attracts higher salaries elsewhere, and there's more competition. And sometimes that's around timing, and particularly during COVID, we saw some different behaviour. People were acting in different ways. Some people wanted to stay in their roles, and lots of people were making life changes. So the kind of stats, which we will get, are very much a mixed bag. The point on representation is really important. So because there is that piece about older people, but there's also that piece about younger people joining the council, and it may not be as much an aspiration of younger people coming out of university to join not just this council, any council as it once was. So our apprenticeships are really important, and some of our trainee work. We also have that really, and we're really pleased with our gender pay gap, which I'm not sure if we will come on to. We also have that issue about being more representative of the communities we serve, which is still a challenge for us. It's important to note those things. You're right about older people, but it's representing all people also. Just well, thanks. Any more questions?
Councillor Reynolds was waiting to come in.
Yeah, I'll be quick, Chair. I've got two questions. I'm actually saving these a little bit later on, but they've sort of been raised now, so you've had a good one to pick it up. They both been sort of partially answered anyway. One was to do with staff that are leaving, and obviously in the report is referred to the fact that they have exit interviews. I was going to ask, is there any data or statistics involved in, are there any sort of emerging trends, if you like, as to why people may be leaving, possibly attention to each issue, probably more so than good, but at the moment, I think. So is this something that sort of stands out so that can be tackled in the future? That's the first question, really. It would be the data on exit interviews. The second one really was following on from what Councillor Thomas just said, because obviously the figures about pay costs, I mean, they are more figures in terms of just the amount that is paid out in salaries. And I was wondering, how does that relate to the actual numbers of employees? Because obviously, if you've got double number of employees, the costs are going to be up, even though the region may not come up. I know that's very simplistic, but just to sort of illustrate the point. But I was also going to ask, and again, I think you partly covered this, is what sort of percentage of those salaries are what might be classed as sort of higher level salaries as opposed to entry level salaries? What is that sort of breakdown? I know you probably can't put the figures down, but if we could have that information at some point.
Yeah, I think the second part, absolutely. I think that's figures we can go away and bring back. To break down the pay where it is, and see to that. I think the first area.
Yeah, I think the point I was sort of trying to make there was there's two ways of looking at salaries, isn't there? There's the raw figure that people have on their banks, on their pay slips.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then what it's actually worth in their pockets, and obviously over the period of time, you know, the costs have gone up, but the actual value of that money in their pockets obviously hasn't. I don't know what's beyond the scope of what council can do, but I was wondering then when we look at these figures, has that figure gone up markedly because of the numbers of employees or the grades they're on, or is there another reason for it? That's my point. I think it's get to read where these figures come from.
Okay.
Yeah, I think within the report, it does go into some analysis of the relative value of pay awards over that period of time and you know, against this cost of living. So it's some rough stuff. I think what probably would probably be worthwhile when we do the demographics is looking at maybe the last 8 years, what the pay would be. Yeah. Because, you know, taking aside last, which was a flat rate. So I think it was £1,925. So everybody, any on the NJC, and that was a different rate for teachers.
Yeah,
Teachers and stuff.
8% if you account for everything they had.
So last year was a big significant expression. You would have seen that through the sort of papers that came through and part of the budget pressures we've got. So not, and none of that was meant to say that people shouldn't have had a pay awards, just to say that is what's creating part of the pressure. But probably in the last 10 years, it's been below 1%. You know, it's up or zero. Yeah. So what that over a period of time has done is in real terms left there. So I think as around that kind of where you get that, isn't it? What actually in real terms, what would be the net benefit of staff? I suspect, and there's some links in it. So the studies have been done around it. I think there's a net negative associated with that. I think it's also important to point out that that total pay cost is the total pay cost. So that is not what staff get. That is the cost to us having that staff. So you know, it's the pension contribution that you have to make, etc., etc. So that's also included. There's some changes to the teachers' pensions last year, which have contributed to that change. And it did come up originally, but it's also probably worth mentioning. You know, Newport's got certainly the fastest growing population in Wales. That's from the census last year. That population growth has been primarily below 50, but 65, and a significant proportion of our staff are school-based staff. That has increased. So part of that increase in staff is basically because of the increase in demographics and those people we've got, and that teacher-people ratio as well. So it's probably, I suppose today it's probably worthwhile just picking up some of the additional data to come back with, because it's quite hard. It's quite hard to determine exactly what bits of data you want to get to grips with. So I think that's pretty useful as we're going through the conversation to clear out what questions is this raising rather than that's part of the discussion.
And just to finish off on the exit interview, I think when I came into this role a few months ago now, actually the exit interview data was not the best. You know, the information that was coming out was the left for a new job. That tell you, it doesn't necessarily tell you where and why. So over the last couple of months, it just has been rolled out recently. We've refreshed that. We've capturing that information. What are you leaving? Where are you going? What is it for? Is it truly because somebody's paying someone else, or actually is it about relationships internally, or something else? What is it? So I suppose in terms of your request to bring data back, it probably isn't going to give you a great deal of information historically, but we are capturing the information.
But you're working on that, are you?
Yes,
Yeah.
Any more comments?
I know we jumped all over the place a bit, so sorry about that. But this is specific to relation to what you're making. Do we have a market forces policy in terms of?
So we have a market supplement policy. We have no use for it at the moment. We haven't needed to pay an additional amount on top of the graded post because we haven't actually recruiting or been able to find a resource to carry out a role. That is becoming more challenging. So you know, I anticipate that we will start to consider that policy. That policy comes with its own complexities because if you start paying a specific role, a market supplement, what does that mean for the male dominated very similar role, the female dominated very similar role, and it causing pay complexities around people trying to start bringing tribunal claims if they perceive that they are very similar to roles that we're now paying additional monetary values to. So that's why we and most other councils use them very sparsely, and if we don't have to, if there's other mechanisms for reviewing someone's role that perhaps doesn't reflect their role, so i.e. reviewing their job evaluation score or the role profile that they're undertaking, we will consider that in first instance in terms of the organisational structure of that team, as opposed to just jumping straight off the market settlement policy.
Councillor Thomas, and then Councillor Vinton.
Yeah, will be reluctant really to increase pay to upset an imbalance with the region? It's been reading some of the notes there on the regional other councils.
Yeah, I suppose in the section which we haven't quite come on to, it does talk about what we potentially can do to help the conversation around increasing pay. We are part of, 22 authorities in Wales who we put each year into the how much can you afford and what does it look like and what's the impact on staff and where is the greatest impact on that pay structure needed. But that's just, for a long time that's been at the lower bottom end of the pay structure. But actually we're probably finding more that actually that's now the middle and top end of the structure that needs to actually need an assessment regionally, because they haven't kept up perhaps with some of the other places of pay. We're not reluctant to create market forces. We are reluctant to create that competitive across the 22 authorities. But if we increase a social worker's pay by £2,000, then the next council comes along and says, well, we can't recruit leaders. So that way we all increase, and actually, we do need to be mindful of that in the region and what we will.
But regionally then, on the regional level, when you get together, you all look at, we say in the past, the social workers and the like going to other authorities.
Yeah.
So if they sort of working collaboratively, so we don't get all that.
So our pay structure is something determined in each authority. So our job evaluation score determines our pay structure, and they are different across authority. So our pay structure won't necessarily be the same as under the local authority's pay structure in terms of the value that we pay for a job. In the broad round, they are very similar. So they will be perhaps one spinal column look different, so a couple of hundred candidates different, as opposed to a bottom of the pay structure paying there and the top of the pay structure. They will be very similar. So take an example of social worker. Probably every couple of weeks there's an email from one of the 22 authorities. What are you paying your social worker? They're broadly all very similar. We probably find more issue externally with external private sector jobs, things like engineers, where an engineering company out there is specific in that professional discipline and will solely focus on engineering, as the council is focusing on this need to do management responsibilities, number of other things. So then we find we can't compete with the private sector who will pay a lot on those jobs.
So I suppose I have a few things into that. I think we probably it becomes a challenge. You take those roles that are the standard across probably social workers, we would say that around the members. They're pretty standard to except the things that tend to get people are personal circumstances, career progression or workload. So if you look at an organisation like Newport, and again, one of the things that's probably working with in the next batch of stuff is our workforce numbers compared to other local authorities, because that information is mainly through Stats Wales, and comparatively, we've got a small workforce. So out of that 5,900, 3,500 upwards schools. Yeah, so roughly, we've got a pretty small workforce. So things like workload will be one of the determinants. Other local authorities in the past, where they've done things like golden handshakes and stuff. So rather than reaching their job evaluation structures and they pay structures in order to pay people, they do things like they offer sort of payment for somebody to be contracted to them for a couple of years and things like that. being regulated and it loses some ripples when things like that happen. So I think that's primarily what tends. But it's you know, for those standard jobs, it's the other factors. Things like engineers and the like, our pay structures just don't, and the additional things that public private sector companies can add into it, we just don't compete with those. So that's more challenging.
It's important to say as well, so turnover is good. So when your turnover is good, you know, there are sectors that are insufficient to run, there's no skills refresh, your qualities issue doesn't update, you know, get younger people generally coming in. So we have pockets of that.
Yeah.
Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Chair. Just while we're on the subject of the pay, to focusing on how much we can pay, I think it's worthwhile saying it's commendable that the council signed up to the foundation of wage rates to make sure everyone gets a fair wage. Looking at the rates at the moment, the real living wage rate is up at £10.90 per hour across the UK. Referring back some of the issues, we've got 2 grades on here that don't reach that. Page 39 appendix 8, 2 grades don't actually reach that £10.20 rate. Do we actually have people on this rate, or are we actually paying this council above that invoice level of workers?
Yeah, so we apply the foundation living wage is set normally around November time, and we apply that rate in the April following that setting, along with all our other pay awards that normally happen. So for last year we didn't pay that living wage supplement at all, but because there was no need to, the 10, as you said, £10.90 was £9.90 last year, but it was £10.90. So from the 1st of April, because of a delay with pay award agreement for this financial year, with the national negotiation, we will be paying the supplement on the 1st of April until such time that pay award is agreed. And we would anticipate that pay award would then be above the living wage supplement retrospectively. So we will have to pay it, but we would hope, as in previous years, that national negotiations do take it back up to where it should be.
So you don't find that's a USP then, or looking to attract people in the fact that will actually pay the real living wage?
I guess others do it too is one of the issues. Yes, it's conscious that we're quite a complex answer. So in summary, we don't have anyone not paid.
We're above.
We're above, yeah. So it's but
There we go.
It's available that the council we're on. Yes, we will.
that is right.
So
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. There was something I wanted to raise actually about how we highlight the benefits of living and working in Newport. You know, when we advertise a job, do we actually have out there a package of information which will say, for example, Newport is going to be a cheaper place to come and live because rents and various other things are better value for money here than they would be in Westminster. You know, our cheaper council taxes, obviously a favourite one to roll out. But I mean, there would be that. Do you do this? Do you actually produce a pack of information which tells people why Newport is such a great place to live?
Yeah, traditionally we would have done that probably in targeted recruitment campaigns, right. But this week, which is our jobs website, has been undergoing a review, and there is it was there anyway, but perhaps not so obvious, but it's more obvious what the city brings, you know, the benefits we can give to people coming here. So that was launched this week. So if you clicked on the jobs page, you can find that information.
I think, Chair, we've gone into the next section.
Yeah,
sorry. Better go through the rest of the report and then see.
I think so. Yes.
Can I just go back to something though that we touched on earlier? Because you said about, you know, we haven't sort of needed to make that differential, it just hasn't come up. But I do know that, you know, we made redundant, deleted 8 social workers posts because in the whole of the last year we were told that we couldn't recruit those posts. You know, this was coming up to the budget. And then the other one that's, I mean, another example would be the audit team are always short-staffed, aren't they? Because they can't be recruited for. And then so being with that package of things there, I just wanted to ask you, some of these figures about wages are not going to be easy for us to get to the grips with, are they? Because we will be charged by, for example, thinking of engineers, North must have engineers. And we don't know what their engineers' costs are. They're going to be charging us for them in our contractual agreements with them. One way or another we've got to pay it. And the same with SRS. You know, we're paying somebody competitive rates to recruit the right staff. In SRS's case, computer engineers, you know, people with higher skills in that. But we don't actually know what those, do we know what those costs are?
Well, I'm just saying the SRS one is probably the easiest, so interesting because the SRS is probably the easiest one. So SRS staff are employed by 12 so they would have exactly the same problem.
Right, okay.
We know from the chief operating officer of the SRS that he has had difficulty recruiting staff, because when we all moved to this hybrid working, people were able to work from home, big IT companies were recruiting people from all around the world to remote training. But as you would have seen over the last 6 to 12 months, lots of those companies are now, it's cyclical, lots of those companies now are offloading staff. So we have an issue, and now we have less of an issue. I suggest, but they're on Torvine County Borough Council pay structure. So,
right, so we
very similar to the same. Yes, but it doesn't apply for SOS.
I don't know if the examples are necessarily hold up either. I don't know that in those two cases it was because we couldn't recruit. That sometimes people.
Well, that's what we were told. That was what we were told as the basis of the decision.
Social within the business case for the social workers, they were a number of vacant posts that we held for a year.
Yeah.
So it certainly referenced that within the business case. I think my response to that is you know, it's always a challenge when you're faced with an unprecedented financial position, as we were, as every other local authority and sector organisation, a lot of private sector organisations were this year. You know, those are relatively easy decisions to take.
Yeah, I agree.
Than others.
Yes.
The audit one, more complicated, I think, than that. We've struggled to recruit. It's quite a small team. It is one of the the manager was already recruiting on a regional basis, so I think more complicated than that. But also, there was a bit of a structural anomaly within that team on the ratio to auditors to managers. So it was a manager post was taken, we could fill.
I think we would always want to acknowledge the fact that we feel very strongly shouldn't be overburdening some departments. You know, audit is recognised as being cost effective because whatever they pick up, you know, could actually save us a lot of money. And we need to value them and not make sure that they dwindle them down to nothing.
Absolutely, but I'll say exactly the same thing to you. I said the government's committee when this came up, sort of will testify to this. We had to make some pretty challenging budget decisions across the piece. I would say this because it's my role, but our corporate entity, we're very small compared to the size of the organisation. In general, there's no difference to any other bit of the corporate services across the organisation. Kevin was saying the same about HR. And what's the decision? Do you lose a vacant post there, or do you take another social worker post? Because it's that sort of decision where there's no good answers. It's just is it a less worse situation?
Thanks. Everyone okay? Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak? You're on mute.
All right. Not at the moment, thanks.
Can you turn your camera off, please, Councillor Harris? Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. So we'll go through the rest of the report. I'll just reference that some of the things that were mentioned then about partners are also true. So SRS have that a challenge, let's take them as an example, but it can be different because if you're a technical person, you might aspire to be part of a common technical environment as opposed to the opposite challenge you were talking about, where we in local government often expect people to be technical and to do management roles and so on. So there are different challenges there, but they're also looking at that. But a lot of what we're talking about is common in councils, in our partners, and some of what we're talking about is also common in the private sector. It's not, much of this is not unique to us. Do you want to take us to the rest of it?
Yeah. Just to finish on the pay and labour sections, so just I guess probably covered some of these points, but just one point that you have covered. In the labour area, which is we did obviously leave the EU not so long ago, and that has caused us some challenges around the labour that we might have traditionally used, and we've seen in the press things like HGV drivers and care workers and those types of stuff, but a number of other areas, but those two in particular. And just to confirm that we have got access to the government's visa sponsorship scheme, so we can sponsor migrant workers to come and work for the council. We're not actively recruiting for those roles in that way, but we have sponsored people who are currently in our employment and perhaps need to be extended, or perhaps applicants that have come through and asked the question. We have, where there is a need or recruitment or pension issue, we've supported those applications, but they do come with a cost as well, supporting those applications. And also just to finish off on that one, traditionally we would have plugged gaps with agency workers. We still do that quite heavily. That is under review. Our agency contract is under review, but we also find difficulty now with agencies being able to provide, because we also can't always jump to an agency provider to provide care staff to kind of sickness or wherever we're there. So we do see challenges in our agency sector as well, which, as I said, is under review for this financial year to assess that usage. Jumping on to section 2, recruitment and onboarding. So the majority, sorry, you probably covered a bit of this. Majority of our recruitment is through our online portal, through our jobs website, and we do attract a lot of traffic through that process. We do use our various social media platforms, and we do use traditional press platforms depending on the jobs that we're advertising in. So, for instance, for our apprentice campaign last year, we did first time I think we did use things like TikTok, which we hadn't used before, but we used Facebook and LinkedIn and other platforms. So we are trying to attract people from different areas, and again that helps support our workforce plan and strategic quality plan, and I'm trying to boost our diversity, particularly in the younger area in that example. And also in there you'll see that the team more and more are going out into the city of Newport, going to jobs fairs, getting out there in the community, and perhaps demystifying local government or your city council and trying to attract applicants into the organisation. You don't have to know someone to be an employee of your city council. You can just apply for it, would like consider you. So there's a number of ways we're trying to tackle the demographic issue. We went to a school leaver jobs fair at the International Convention Centre a couple of weeks ago, and we attracted a number of traffic through our jobs portal, and people signed up to alerts, and hopefully will start to come through our employment and induction processes. But also we do recognise that these organisational development activities need to form part of our people plan, as Tracy touched on at the start, that we will develop. Now we have a corporate plan as a result of an action. The next step for us in HR and the organisation is to develop our people plan for the next few years in line with what our aspirations, where our focus is on things like recruitment, retention, well-being, staff too, as we touched on today. Also, there's the exit strategy, which we've discussed. Just a point about recruitment, it's far less one-sided. So probably a few years ago, we put a job up, we'd had lots of applicants, and we'd have to pick a bunch. Actually, it's probably the other way around now in many ways. that the applicant is selecting the employer it wants to be employed by, and we need to adapt to our way of recruiting in that way to ensure we're an employer of choice, rather than just kind of necessity. And again, our people plan will look at that and use some of our more caring roles have already moved to a values-based recruitment process where they assess the values of the individual rather than the more experiential type of interview questions. We will need to consider that whether that's an approach the council wants to adopt for all of us for specific parts of its going forward on sites and tell me about your experience type of questions. I mentioned that the council's jobs page would be refreshed and is hopefully more engaging and visible and accessible to users, but also it's not just about traffic through the jobs page. Like I said, we are getting out there into the community and trying to bring people in. We will review our methods selection. So, at the moment you have to fill in a form, quite cumbersome. Will we accept CVs going forward? Some of that area we will focus on when we do a review. That's our recruitment process. Then we have the onboarding type area. So we've recruited some of the successful. We're trying to streamline those processes so that we're ready for that person on day one when they come in. So, probably in years gone by, we've perhaps had a laptop for that person or ID card, and actually make sure all those things are in place. So if we are, that helps for our employer choice. By the way, and that links to corporate induction when we're reviewing feedback face to face, which we have to stop during the pandemic, giving back that personal touch and trying to bring people into the organisation the right way. And some of you, well, all of you probably going to see now a new normal approach in terms of policy changes that went through the cabinet member and through the political process a few months ago now. So we made a few changes to support some of our flexible working options around home working. So we never previously had a home working policy, but people can apply for home working and enjoy that as part of their contractual arrangements. Our travel subsistence policy has been aligned to that to make sure that we are allowing employees to claim from the new base if they're home, and also our general review of our flexible working policy so that we are a flexible employer and we can adopt requests. If you look at our workforce, as I said, we get 78% female. We do need to be flexible in that question and make sure that we're accommodating the best way we can. And also finally in that section is the flexi time scheme. We've reintroduced that, we reviewed it so people can enjoy the use of flexi time where it allows them to as well.
Just come in, Kev. So just to be clear on that, there's two advantages. Obviously, that contributes to our employer of choice kind of aspiration, but also it means the pool of candidates will be wider, larger because of the travel to work distance, and people don't have to be in the office every day. So we're trying to reach out to the wider pool. Problem is everyone else is doing the same, so they're sorry.
And just to finish up on that in section 2, we're also early discussions across WLJ about the 4-day working week parameters and what that means, and when that starts to build into discussion, this council, like I'm sure most of them will be trying to understand the impact of that, what that looks like. So we will be actively engaged in what other options are there for our going forward. That's section. In section. Yeah.
Yes. Loaded it for you.
That's fine. No questions. So the final section is about organisational development activity. We probably write quite a few pages in this, so I tried to pick out the main kind of areas that we are supporting as a council. The first section is our benefits scheme. So we have a number of employee benefit schemes, from cycle to work scheme, car scheme, technology scheme, technology through the provider. Last year we launched an additional pension contribution scheme, which allows employees to save more towards their pension. And another, so you can join us for credit union, and a number of schemes that we have in place that again try and make us that employer of choice and offer other things than pay that do help both the employee with their costs in contributing towards them, but also offer the council some opportunities to make savings as well from those employee schemes via tax and national insurance reduction. Probably getting a bit complex there. I'll explain what we do. But there's a benefit both to the employee and the employer from any, like most benefit schemes that we offer. There's also a reduction in tax on their contributions, either by the employee, but also as a employer choice. It helps significantly in that area. Career development opportunities. We've got a number of offerings that we offer centrally out to the organisation around career development, as well as supporting service specific agendas. Organisationally, we offer, and they're listed in the report, page 5, stepping up to management opportunities. So those who aren't managers, what does that look like? This is something I'm interested in to try and promote career progression and talent progression. We offer an emerging leaders programme, which is looking to identify the leaders of the future that we might need to. We're in this context of struggling to recruit in competitiveness for the private sector, so we don't need to try and grow our own. Shadowing schemes where people can go and get a taste for a job and try and understand what that involves, or even the job in their structure. Coaching and mentoring schemes, so we offer people the qualifications to do that. Inclusive leadership schemes where people understand like diversity, inclusion, and also unconscious bias in perhaps things like recruitment processes or other processes that they might be involved in. And also fairly recently, health and safety responsibilities across the board. So all our managers have been on or will be on a 3 or 4 day IOS management safety qualification that they need to complete as a manager's training to help support both the aspirations of managers, but obviously the organisation in terms of compliance as well. And as I said, outside of the central kind of pot of development that we offer, we will support service specific requests. So to touch on social services as a good example, they have had for a number of years a social training programme where they support university students with placements in the council. We have a lot of success with recruiting from that pool of applicants then into the council each year. But we also do that in a number. So we're doing a carbon reduction team at the moment where we have traineeships. We do a procurement team, we do a legal team. So there's opportunities for us to support people's development, but in employment and into employment as well. Moving on to staff engagement and wellbeing, key areas. Obviously, more staff are engaged, the more they're more motivated they will be and more productive they will be, and hopefully, increase that employer choice opportunity and stay with us for the longer term. So we have a number of programs in place where we provide regular feedback, employee wellness check-ins, flexible working arrangements, which I touched on earlier, that we offer. We have annual recognition schemes that we try and recognise employees for positive work, and even some of the things around building activities, office days, those sorts of things. We're all aimed at trying to boost engagement, trying to bring the morale of that team up, particularly those who traditionally spend most of their time at home now. That could be a challenge, so it's trying to encourage balance of both homes and contact others. You'll see in the report bottom of page 36 that there's also outlines what the senior teams, the Reece, Tracy and the chief exec, etc., do in terms of their approach to engagement with staff. So an annual cyclical process around roadshows, staff conferences, service area meetings, making sure everyone's aware, wellbeing kind of conversations, so that is set out. Sorry, I'm not just going to do this effectively. And then we also have a number of employee voice groups that we have in the organisation. So we have diversity groups, we have pride groups, we have the climate change network, we have the disability group in NCC network. There's a number of voice groups that we have, as well as important trade unions who will come to meet cabinet member and cabinet member for education on a quarterly basis, and we'll have that opportunity to discuss areas of concern or areas of development, and obviously officers will come along to that and support that as well. And finally, employee wellbeing is critical for us. We launched last year quite cultural change, I suppose, in terms of approach. So we traditionally be reactive to absence of staff and perhaps even sanctions when they hit triggers. And so you had so many days we're going to bring you to a hearing and give you a warning. We changed the approach completely last year and got rid of that and focused far more on the front loading of that support, actually trying to support people to stay in employment in the first place rather than reacting to when they perhaps become stressed or issues around eligibility issues because perhaps they're aging or something like that. So we have a wellness approach that now supports absence from the outset rather than running from the end of the process. So that will be wellbeing checking, so that will be a wellbeing support plan that's put in place for that purpose to support their wellbeing from job to job, so it's not like trying to progress them into jobs. So it's not just that what we like.
Yes.
But yeah, employee wellbeing, there's wellbeing referrals, occupational health provision, care first provision, a number of areas that support our wellbeing. And I suppose just to conclude, there are a number of recruitment protection issues affecting them, and just before there are a number of actions that we try to take to avoid those and support those. And we'll obviously bring back up the demographic areas that we've touched on today to try and give you
Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Thomas would like to come in. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, just on the thinking of recruitment and the changes in society which sort of influence recruitment. Do you foresee a time when elected members will be offered employee benefits?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's come up in two other forums. One is Scrutiny and one is somewhere else. So we've just reviewed the benefits because of the terms of office. Some of those benefits are limited. You need a longer run. So we're just reviewing that.
Some people have a very long run.
Have we? Of course. And we're about to offer that out. So particularly things that support the council's aspirations. So if you think of things like the bike scheme as one which also supports that planning applications, we ought to encourage that. So that's one I know you've been in, and there is some that are kind of technically not possible. So yes, is the short answer. Two.
And Kevin, you've talked about a lot about the measures which support a more favourable picture of recruitment and retention. Now, obviously, we know a lot of those, we're not getting there yet. But I mean, can you think of something which you would like to see implemented, that you think would be a big contribution towards overcoming some of the difficulties that we've got?
Yeah, and it comes back to the resources to do it. I think it is out in the community trying to attract people into employment. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the HR team to do that. That could be us supporting managers to go out and recruit in different ways and accepting ACV to rather than forcing somebody to fill in the job application form process that can be, and we'd be perhaps reassessing some of the language that's used in there that perhaps doesn't mean something to somebody who doesn't quite understand what we're asking of that section. So I think if there was an empty pot to support that, it'd be a resource to get back out there and attract people
just,
I mean, I think elected members probably have a role to play in this, just talking about the opportunities with the council.
We had a really interesting conversation with the leads of our staff, Black minority ethnic, and he was talking about his experiences kind of out there within his community, where people wanted to know who he knew in the council in order to get a job, because that would be the belief in some communities, if you like. And that's the sort of myth we really need to dispel, isn't it? And the other piece of feedback is, and this we can do without resources, is on the relatively recent things that we used in the job evaluation scheme, because our job descriptions are technical to inform pay. It's in our advert, as a cleaning operatives is a good one. That's a cleaner, and we can say that, we can simplify the advert even if the background documentation is more technical. And again, that came through some recent feedback, didn't it? So there's some things I think we can do without resource that we're working towards, but there are others. Reaching out into communities takes quite a lot of resource, actually.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Would you like to comment?
I have a lot more joy than having. I've got a list of questions. Do you prefer me to ask the questions all together and then you answer them all at a time, or you would ask them all at a time?
Well, the time span.
Yeah. Before I ask the questions, I've actually got two sort of positive comments. Actually, first of all, because you mentioned that the values-based improvements that you do, and that's something that's just on a personal level, something that I've come up with for 3 years. I'm so glad to hear that, because I'm not only came myself, and some of the best employees we've got are people who are young, no experience whatsoever, but they come in and they've got the right values and they know what kids need. They look after children and they learn their job as they go along. If they were employed based on their experience and their knowledge, they didn't like that job in the first place. It's so good to hear that. One of the questions I had as well was about the employee wellbeing program, but again, you've answered that. So it's a probably question or a positive comment really. Again, it's one of my little pet subjects, is that people don't want to be, or it's very hard for people to be looking for counselling and help and wellbeing support when you're in a time of crisis. It's so good now that this is being promoted as a part of employment. So it's an ongoing regular thing that people are aware that they're dealing with it. It's being tackled on an ongoing basis rather than waiting for crisis funds. The last thing that people want to hear when there's crisis is, oh, well, there's a counselling scheme over there. If you want to increase that number, it's up now. So it's still good to hear. Quite the tricky bits now. You mentioned Brexit, and it is a big polarising issue. People have strong opinions on either side. But it is acknowledged, I think, that the difficulties that Brexit goes, you can see it's entirely forgivable. But do we have any sort of hard facts and data about the effects that Brexit has had on the without attention, I suppose, but maybe within the council? And the reason I'm asking that, because it is such a polarising topic, like the more facts and more data and more hard facts we've got on things like that, rather than people's opinions, I think better. So do we have any hard data on the effects of Brexit had on people?
I mean, we don't specifically have an analysis of, we were unable to recruit to that job because it was because of Brexit. I think that's a challenge, because there's a number of factors in this to understand that. And you know, if you look at, yeah, and it's a bit of hearsay, isn't it, that actually the care sector is struggling, or the HGV drivers is struggling because of the Brexit impact. I guess we don't have a specific recruitment issue identified because of Brexit. I don't. Is my answer to that, unless you disagree.
We sorry, Chair, you want to point out. So that it is really complicated. So we on the run up to Brexit, we have had a Brexit task and finish group. Basically, the union task and finish group. So that's something you might remember. So we come from WLJ. So those who've been in office before, 22. WLJ came to talk to members of around some of that information. So we had a series of work streams up and running in preparation, and they were about the things you mentioned: the workforce training, there was a stream of procurement, there was a finance one, there was a social care work stream, etc. There was a communication work stream, we had all those work streams. So various things were undertaken as a result of that. Some preparation put in place to do it. And then in this we had the subsequently, significant reduction in the need for services and fuel, etc., across the globe for a period of time, and then a bounce back beyond that, just created inflation. It's really hard in the midst of all that. That this specific issue was caused because the UK chose to exit the Union. And that's just a fact. So the short answer is no. It's a contributory factor to the issues we have with employee in some areas. So you mentioned Kiwi. Historically we would have had staff potentially from the European Union. I don't think, because of the pay scales, they qualify for visa schemes. So that is potentially an issue. But there's so many other things that have happened since 2019. It's really difficult to pull that out. So, Tracy writes a regular report that goes to Cabinet on external issues. That less and less talks about Brexit related things now and more about other things. We've had COVID, we've had cost of the fuel crisis, energy costs going through the roof, or Ukraine. They have all had massive impact on the way we operate and costs associated with chemical treatments. We're able to look at those things with them.
CIPD have produced a number of reports on the impact of recruitment so specifically.
Yeah, so these national things. I think from our point of view, as Kevin said, can we say we couldn't refer to that post because of Brexit? Well, no, we can't. It's one of the range. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's a complicated issue. There's a lot of interrelated factors. So I get that. Next. I've got two more questions. That's all right, Chair. The next one is about agencies. You mentioned about agency staff. And again, I'm sort of on personal experience here now. I know with agency staff, they tend to cost a lot more. I can remember when I was a fly teacher, the agency would charge a fortune for sending into a school. I never saw that money. The agency got most of that money. I'm just wondering, you mentioned earlier about the spiraling costs of your salary costs within the council. What effect does employing agency staff, what sort of percentage effect has that had on your overall salary costs or your employment costs? And have you got, again, it might be anecdotal, but have you got any ideas how that might have affected the level of service? So again, going back to teaching, I know supply teachers come in, some are better than others, but also supply teachers can come in, just do the job, go home, but those relationships with the children weren't there, the back of the work wasn't there, they weren't marketing, they weren't preparing, that sort of thing. I know the job is there to have an agency staff that are one of the generalists too, that really don't have that commitment and level of expertise that your regular staff would have. So just a two-pronged question really, as the agency staff employment has an effect on costs in terms of salaries and also the level of service being employed in.
Yeah, I think in terms of cost, and we know this from an FOI recently, our agency cost for last year was about 16.8 million for the year. That's quite significant because, as you say, there probably is likely charges on top of that for things that we, for providing that service to an agency that perhaps we could be utilising elsewhere in different areas. So what percentage of that they will pay, but it's not probably around 90%, isn't it? That's less than that. But it's fair cost of 16, but you see costs across the agency. Do we get as good a service as we employ those staff directly? again, it's a bit like the Brexit answer thing. In my mind, I'd probably say no. And disagree, but
I think we have to say you can't survive without
yeah,
supply teachers and agents.
Exactly.
So, because you don't have additional, we can't afford to pay additional resources to sit around and record in when someone's off, and so on and so on and so on. So I think it's necessary, but it's a different service, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not letting staff do anything with, I teach myself, so I'm not letting them down, it's just.
You understand the necessity, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, but there is a balance to be struck, isn't there? And generally speaking, those agency costs are mitigated by having a vacancy. Say we've done some work around this, you know, jobs that temporarily are open or whatever that looks like, because there isn't extra money paying for agency and supply. It's going to go to that overall budget pot, isn't it?
Please switch that to commit.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, but you know, so mainly it's because partly it's because of vacancy, but they are in roles. So schools are the big ones, so a significant proportion of the big schools. So they're in roles where, you know, if somebody's sick, for instance, that service still needs to happen. So that's where the strain on agency. So, you know, it's because we've actually, you know, it might be a school or it might be refuse collection or something like that. You know, we've got to have somebody there that day to do that job, but you know, we can't afford to. Whilst it's a cost, obviously, for agency, what we can't afford to do is retain a workforce for every eventuality. So, you know, it's a necessity to have. You're inevitably going to have that, but we are taking a bit of a lot. Obviously, we need to get that, so that's what we possibly can.
Mr. Riggs, would you like to say?
Just two questions. Firstly, again, a commendment, looking at the onboarding process and particularly priority supported by the LGA towards development portfolio of career development roadmap. It's a really good idea. People coming in, it's good to promote those to people. Firstly, picking up on what Professor Reynolds was saying about the agencies. When you have agency staff, is there a possibility when you're negotiating with the agency that you use to look to have the agency staff on maybe attempt to do a basis so that it doesn't cost you so much in the long term, particularly if they're a good worker, to actually say, right, we'll actually bring these people on board. Do you have that to negotiate in advance so that it doesn't cost you so much if you do take them?
yeah. So I suppose just to explain our preferred supplier outside of school is Randstad. So we'll go directly to Randstad and they may tier out to agencies to bring somebody in through Randstad. And yes, through that arrangement we have you know, an arrangement where we don't have to pay a fee and actually bring them in and to our employment after a period of time. So absolutely we do have that arrangement.
That's where the fees do start stacking up.
The problem we do get is where people go, where perhaps the agency or the Randstad can't provide that resources, and we're going out to other agencies. You know, we can't have that luxury of saying, if we take that person on, we can pay a fee, whatever. Whereas Randstad, we have that agreement, they get that as our preferred supplier of agency staff. So predominantly, yeah, yes, we do that. We make people permanent from agency contracts, particularly in areas of more work, particularly there's much more of a need for agency. And yeah, our review will assess what that is possible based on off contract spend compared to
I just want to pick up on this. We're talking about recognition programs. A couple of years, whatever, sort of 2010, so in 2011, we had the extra mile awards that were linked to, you know, celebrating the workers within the council, but schools and school children as well. So actually receive one. Is this something that's going to be reintroduced? Is something that's going to come back, or maybe in a different form? Again, it's all about the recognition. It's not all just a couple of extra quid and pay back.
No.
It's about recognising people for the good work that they do.
So we try and do something every year, and the theme and how we do that changes. you know, based on things that might be off the agenda at that time. But the last few years, we've done a values and scheme, which aligned to our council values, very just responsible and positive. Sorry, for second there. So they've aligned to those things. So people have been able to nominate based on those three values. Why they feel somebody should get an award for something they've done, whether that's out in the community, whether that's out internally. And we've awarded those at generally some sort of staff event, whether that be a Martha's Court event that we had, where we had a sort of like little buffet where we awarded those to teams and staff based on nominations across the council. So we had people from staff networks contributing to the award programme. We had the trade unions contributing and identifying awards for councillors part of those assessments. So we try and do something every year. For this year, we're hoping to hold a staff conference in the summer months. So around July or September, we'll do something very similar. In those sessions, we also recognise long service awards, and you know provide opportunity for that to celebrate at the same time. So we do try and do something every year. Yes.
We have one more comment. Councillor Aidan, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. It's just two questions, really. One's with regards to liaising with other neighbouring local authorities, particularly when it comes to recruitment. So do we have any sort of strategy in place in terms of sharing services when it comes to, you know, recruitment, retaining, etc., to save costs, but also obviously to aspire to greater business resilience, providing that obviously we're in unprecedented economic, an economic situation where we need to work with, I think, other local authorities, you know, in a productive manner. And the other question is, it's in relations to reaching a wider audience when it comes to job vacancies. So can you please advise what platforms as a local authority we use when it comes to advertising jobs, apart from, you know, the Newport City Council website and a few online agencies? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would like to answer that.
In terms of the online platforms, we obviously this council website, we do use a number of other social media platforms through our comms team. So we will use Facebook, LinkedIn for professional in terms of LinkedIn. As I touched on earlier, we use things like TikTok, depending on what we're trying to target. And I think they are our three main platforms that we advertise through. We do use other press, so we will use, you know, if we're recruiting to the engineering example again, we will go in the national engineering press for that. Social work is very similar. We also signed up for a number of roles. UK and Wales, for instance, where all our jobs go to the UK and Wales, with the other local authorities here as well, so that we're advertising in one place. Also, as part of the partnership arrangements across Grant, there is a recruitment and retention team looking at how we can, or if we can have one point of access for public sector jobs in the area. That's not just local government, that's potentially NHS, etc. A number of partners that are on those PSBs. And also, particularly in social services, we're currently the Director of Social Services is currently looking at as our all authorities, looking at whether we can support recruitment across the whole area and try and stop the monopoly for the private sector in trying to provide some of that resources and try and support that recruitment across the local authority rather than having to go external for that recruitment. So I think it's in a round way, I would say we early on in trying to share our recruitment across public sector. I think that we are actively engaged in a number of different areas.
Yeah, thanks, Kev. And we work locally, regionally with Gwent colleagues and so on, but we also are part of the WLGA workforce group and talk about national challenges, because sometimes we find we have more in common with further away places than Gwent, so we do both.
So Howells?
My first point sort of picks up also about really, have we ever considered, particularly probably for schools, sort of generating our own bank staff system, partnership with the local authorities. There'll be a number of teachers that have retired early, probably be happy to come in and do a day a week here, day a week there, different schools sort of going in. There would be an opportunity to sort of massively reduce costs and share that across sort of local authorities in terms of a bank system, similar to the NHS. Which would be great for schools, because as you said, that's the biggest sort of area of sort of agency spend. So go on, do
you want me to start? So back in the day, years ago, we used to do that with our own agency for the schools. That went about 2010. 2010 is a better saving. And we recently, because it's been Welsh Government raised the local authorities because of the obviously teaching staff working through agencies and the costs associated with that for local authorities and schools, and also the disbenefit for those staff who are working through agencies with the pension contribution. That's obviously an issue. We've done some local analysis on that, and there's for us to do, it would be a significant cost to do. But there's been conversations regionally and the Welsh Government around that. It's a national problem, particularly from the school side.
And Welsh Government are leading on a supply teacher review with a potential option of them employing an agency framework for supply teachers for Welsh authorities.
Yeah. And I think that's the solution rather than the authority solution. It's got to be national.
My second point was just in relation to some of the wellbeing initiatives, just sort of tying back to the service plan discussions that we had a few months ago, where we were talking about sort of line manager sort of check-ins and wellbeing check-ins, and actually the data that you had at that time suggested that they weren't happening probably as frequently as we thought. But they probably were happening when we were recorded. I know there was sort of a reference to the iTrend system and logging. I just wondered whether there has been an improvement in terms of recording, because that's a key sort of area in terms of retention of staff, is there, in terms of sort of contact with the managers, which is great. You might not know that, you can go back to us.
Yeah, and I think since the last sort of July time, we have reviewed the whole check-in process. And we have taken papers to the exec team to propose some changes to that and encourage better use of the system. A lot of the feedback is that these conversations happen, just not recorded in iTrend. But obviously, this recording, we can clearly see it is happening. So we've made a number of changes. We are in the process of how those changes have impacted and benefited. So it's quite straightforward in the corporate service area to look at everybody start checking, and actually some of the more manual operational areas, it becomes more challenging and more harder to have those weekly, fortnightly conversations to check in. But we do need to do some further work in making sure guidance is available. Although some of those areas will be regulated by some of their activity anyway, like in particular social services, so our regulated activity, which should hold those check-ins and should discuss case work, etc. So yeah, I would hope to see when the stats come through next time.
And obviously we'll be coming back with the service plan.
Yeah.
In very long. We've got some further roads to travel.
Yeah, no, I think that's really useful. I think what I was going to make when you were talking about it, sorry, I'll do it now. I think the interesting bit about that wellness and well-being was, I think that came out of a real, we want to be a data-driven council. That came out of a data-driven piece of work. So a real analysis of a number of years of the amount of work going into the system and the impact it was actually having on sickness levels. An analysis of the type of sickness we had. Actually, what was the evidence-based best approach for dealing with those situations, rather than a blanket approach, which was, which, as Kevin said, there are a series of milestones and potential sanctions associated with milestones. So, I think jury's still out on the impact of it. We need to do some further analysis on is there a positive and negative impact on the sickness, on staff morale and well-being within the organisation. We need to look at that, but it did come out of there were analysis of the costs associated with the system, which wasn't really having an impact. We don't any sickness level.
Any more comments to the officers? Councillor Reynolds.
Thanks, Chair. Just one mistake I'd be glad to know. It's to do with the section in the report about homework. You have quite a positive comment about the productivity levels of obviously increased. There's a bit surprised a lot of, not just the council, a lot of people outside as well, a lot of employers, when office companies and homework, it became a big thing. A lot of people thought that productivity would actually go down with people being at home and they not being largely set to work. It's a nice surprise it's gone off the other way. But in an early discussion, we said it's not all about productivity. Obviously, homeworking can have negative effects on staff in terms of working relationships. Maybe not have that innovation and teamwork and all the office conversations that you have. So obviously, you've got the data on productivity. That's quite not easy, I suppose, but it's a good way of that's a numerical measure you can have. Have you got any employee feedback on maybe some of the other effects of homework and maybe some of the more negative effects?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We got so we launched those policies October time. It took probably the rest of that year for people to sign up to and agree, etc. And actually, we're now in the phase where we're trying to bring that new normal work that flows through a staff wellbeing feedback survey that we've got going out maybe the first week of May, where we're trying to capture that feedback on how what's been the impact of that policy, what further do you need from us to support whatever you work with this, but that's very long. So we do have that going on, but we need to capture that information, the impact of those changes.
Thank you.
And I suppose just to add to that, so obviously with the pandemic, we need to set this off the side. 5,800 odd staff. They supplied to about 1,200 of those staff. So the vast majority of people, either working in schools or working in services, we are here. You're going to be face to face. So mitigations in place to protect those. So we're talking about a reasonably small number of the workforce. But during the new normal programme, we did have a couple of staff surveys really about the pros and cons of working from home, and I think that we've used that to inform the policies. Where we haven't said another one of our neighbouring authorities essentially told everybody they were going to work from home. That's kind of the contractual position, and we've never wanted to do that. What we wanted to do is say, look, it's about being a mature organisation and approaching this in that way, and giving people a choice, but really mindful of their well-being issue, because we've often said we don't want to see anybody at home. Well, if somebody's going to work, they need to be coming into the office, they need to be working with their team, and they need to be being developed, and actually need to have eyes on to make sure they're okay as well. So that's been kind of a key bit in it. And the productivity bit was really interesting. I've actually got far more conversations with people about how much they're doing as in evenings and weekends and not switching off. People closer to me. That than the other, because actually what Teams has done you know, we've launched things like bring your own device as well. You know, so you know, with your emails on your phone, you've got access to everybody you want to on Teams. People don't stop, you know.
That is the flip side.
And that is a challenge. And you know, I talk about being a mature organisation. For some of that maturity is that's where we're being responsible enough not to be messaging people, you know, of an evening or a weekend about things that can wait. If there's a, I'm not looking at you, so I'm saying if there's, you know, if there's an emergency, we've got an emergency response process. But you know, I think that there's an expectations grown up that we're all there's a, you know, we're always essentially on call, and that's not healthy. Yeah. Yeah, but to be honest, that was sort of the reason behind the question is the lobbying side of things, because often if you only are at home, yes, you've got less distraction, yes, you can do more. But if you have got a problem, that office conversation, that little bit of a personality, it's not available. That that's where you also start confidence, you start work, you start doing it. So yeah, that's something that you take into it's and you know, and even during the pandemic when we, you know, this. You know, the height of it, when there's a fairly skeleton crew of people in this building, even then we made allowances for some people to come into the building because they you know, lose well-being issues with being on that. So that, you know, we've tried to, I'm not saying we're getting it right all the time, we try to because one of the issues with all of this is it's a huge organisation delivering massive amount of different services in completely different ways, and that sort of cultural view value stuff is often challenging. But yeah, so that it's something, you know, it's been at the heart of all the conversations we've had around the normal, and you know, restricting some of those policy decisions.
Just add to that, so because one of the things Kevin covered was on the bottom of page 36, the annual Cyfarfod engagement. But that is, we're aware that's something we're still aspiring to. So we've talking to senior leaders about we all need to do this in the same way. So different services might have different ways of engaging with staff, and we need some minimum expectations for every team meeting, service meetings, and so on. So we're aware that we still need to keep reinforcing those messages so that we're getting some consistency. Right?
So thank the officers very much for your reports. Well put together. Thank you. Thank you for attending today. John, you need to sign this. Comments for?
Yes, please. Some of the comments that I've noted there is committee to make positive comments about the value-based treatment, about employment well-being, also looking to get figures back on the demographic of workforce, what percentage of the salaries are high level opposed to entry level salaries. We said it might be worth Kevin and Andrews again giving figures of committee workforce numbers compared to other local authorities. And
interested in ages as well, the age of people leaving and the ages of people recruited.
At the time that they stay within the council.
Yeah. And with comparisons from previous years. So those.
It's just reminding you, so.
And also made a positive comment about the employee well-being. It's good to hear it's been promoted as part of the employment and the value-based recruitment as well. Was there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make to the officers?
Yeah, just about the shared services. I'm not sure whether you mentioned that, Neil.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, with neighbouring local authorities, if that could be explored in terms of saving costs, and also a shared recruitment strategy as well. Perhaps that could be looked into as well. I think that would benefit both the council and staff and the public as a whole. Thank you.
So,
They in a way they answered that because they felt that it would have to be a national initiative. But I mean, when I first came to work in Newport, I came to work on a peripatetic team, and they may be, you know, I think these things can be more expensive to run. But actually, what are we looking at here? You know, yeah, and I'm a governor of Mays Ever, and I can't listen. It's absolute over 100,000 they're spending on support workers this year. You know, the supply support workers this year because they need such a high ratio of staff to children there. It's just horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So I mean, it may be the council may be thinking that's expensive for them to organise, but actually it's no good if you just assume that another branch of your organisation like schools will pick up the cost.
Yeah,
I think it still be explored though, Kate. I mean,
I
feel that it wasn't addressed completely.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, and there is no reason why, you know, if people are interested in a variety of roles in learning about their professional situations in different places, in different ways, which is what happened to me on the Perry team, you know, they couldn't be looking at, say, Torvine and Newport working together. You know, we're not talking about best areas here.
I think that might be something for the future.
The financial as well implications.
Authorities.
And we have shared roles at a higher level. You know, the senior audit officer, he was sharing a role in another local authority. We've certainly done it before. It could be done at lower levels.
Would you like to add? Comments, recommendations on chair.
Thank you.
In the last part, just the action sheet. I'll chase up everything that you said, Councillor Rees, during the last minutes, and also I'll get the figures as well, the contact centre about the wait times as well. As you said,
a date for the next meeting.
We've got the rough date for the next meeting is July. Apologies, Sam and I we're going to be speaking with the heads of service and the directors soon about working the draft annual forward work programme. So what we do once we get that sorted, we'll bring it to the next committee meeting. That'll be Monday the 17th of July. That'll be for the end of your performance reviews and the first part. If any dates change, we'll let you know in plenty of advance.
Okay, so we will have a new chair then.
We'll have a new chair, Councillor Howell.
She'll be with us as well.
Yeah.
So, can I just confirm, did you say the next week's going to be the 17th of July? So I got the 10th of my diary. That changes it.
Not changing.
Both would.
Sorry.
Yeah, so apologies, it's the 10th of July, that'll be the first part, and the 24th of July, 2 weeks later. If anything changes with those dates, Sam and I will let you know as soon as possible. As it stands, yeah, those are the dates. you bring the draft annual forward work programme as well to this meeting, so because the forward work programme is owned by yourselves, you're free to add or take off anything you see fit. Okay, so then have a word with the head of service, see if they got any topics that they need to bring to us. Of course, anything that you want us to take a look at head of service and agree with that. So we'll also share the dates of the meetings as well, as soon as possible.
What's been on the council diary movement?
Yeah, the Assembly has sent for it, but we'll ensure any amendments we make sure everyone knows as soon as possible. That's it.
Right, thank you all, committee. Thank you for your inputs.
Any change?